YouTubers, this is another video from your friendly neighborhood reviewer, Evelyn. So today we're going to be reviewing the new Marvel movie, Thor Love and Thunder, starring Chris Hemsworth of the Hemsworth brothers, also starring, what's her name again, Natalie Portman as Jane Foster. I saw the movie today and I'm going to give you my honest feedback and analysis of the movie. Before we start, I just want to thank all the new viewers who are subscribed, and to any new people watching this video, I would really appreciate it if you can hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's get on to the movie. I'm gonna be very honest, all the criticism within the movie is valid. Very valid. This movie is so basic to understand, really basic. There's two things that's good about this movie: Christian Bale and the Guns N' Roses soundtrack. Apart from that, it's very mediocre, the plot. So at the beginning of the movie, we see Christian Bale as Gorr on a planet that's, dried up. There's no life whatsoever, carrying his daughter. The daughter dies and an oasis ends up appearing in the middle. And Gorr, aka Christian Bale, goes into the oasis and sees the water and he's desperate, he's eating the fruit. And then he sees a god there. Apparently this is the god that Gorr's tribe was worshipping, and this so-called god cruelly mocks his worshipper, saying that it doesn't matter that his daughter died, that the whole planet, that there'll be more followers. And in turn, Christian Bale, Gorr, gets infected with the necromancer sword. Apparently the sword is strong enough to kill gods. So we have an epic shot of Gorr killing the sun god. The beginning of the movie, spot on. Christian Bale, he acted his ass off for the short time he was in the movie. He acted better in a potato sack than Chris Hemsworth could have in all that kind of costume and grandeur and stuff. And then we get flash forward, as many of you may have remembered in Avengers Endgame, the last part. Thor went off with the Guardians of the Galaxy to go off and fight evil and all that kind of baloney. So this is the part when the movie starts to go downhill. There's really cheesy, crude jokes that is particularly not funny whatsoever. They kind of portray Thor as an imbecile, and they do a montage of everything that Thor's lost: his mother, his brother, his planet. And it made it seem like he was getting over a bad breakup, explaining his weight gain on what we saw as Fat Thor. A breakup, yeah, you gain 20 pounds eating your feelings away, but when you end up losing your planet, your mother, your father, your brother, twice, I doubt we can compare a bad breakup with, bereavement. So that just, emotionally is gone, kaput, gone. And then afterwards, while with the Guardians of the Galaxy, we can see that even with the Guardians of the Galaxy, they want to kick Thor off, because Guardians of the Galaxy has a little bit of the same humor, but not too much that overpowers the plot. So they go off and they leave Thor to do his things after Thor receives a distress signal coming from, his warrior mate, Lady Sif, whatever her name is. And he ends up finding her with half her arm gone, and she's expecting to die, go to Valhalla. But Thor, kind of tells him straight up, you haven't died, you survived, so maybe half your arm is in Valhalla. That joke falls flat. It's you haven't seen this character for, I don't know, you let me know when the last time you saw Lady Sif. From what I remember was in Loki, but apart from that, a character you haven't seen in such a long time, you put her in such a minuscule part, looking even worse than Thor. And then afterwards, Thor goes to Asgard, in which Lady Sif says that Gorr the Butcherer is going to go to Asgard to take the children. So I'm going to do a sidestep. We get reintroduced to Jane Foster. We see her undergoing tests, and we find out that she has stage 4 cancer. And despite her being a scientist trying to find every cure, there's no hope. We get a small cameo from Alexander Skarsgård, who was in the first Thor movie and Avengers as another scientist. But then again, she gets a calling from, the mythology of Thor. She sees the books and stuff, and then she reads again about Thor's original hammer, Mjolnir. God knows how you pronounce this name, you let me know. And then she goes to Asgard. And then we find Asgard has turned into a tourist attraction. all the Asgardians are there, and then we have Valkyrie as king of the people, and we see that she's quite unhappy. A lot of this film gets pulled by these really like bro humor jokes, like you see from those gym bros, and it's just ridiculous. And then we find out that Jane Foster got the power of Thor, that the original hammer repieced together, giving her strength of Thor. I'm gonna be honest, the character arc of Thor got put into Jane Foster. You believe she was Thor more than, you know, Chris Hemsworth as Thor. So eventually Thor and Jane meet up in Asgard, where Gorr the Butcher is there attacking the people with the shadow monsters that he has. And let me tell you, the short time that Christian Bale was on this movie, he stole the show amongst all the buffoonery of, you know, Chris Hemsworth, Jane Foster, and Valkyrie, and even that rock monster Gorg. He made those parts where he was integral, believable, and almost terrifying. You can tell Christian Bale kind of knew what he was getting himself into, and he was just having fun. You know, literally, I repeat it again, Christian Bale can act in the potato sack, which he did, and it was more meaningful than Thor and all that big, you know, fake costumes. And I believe this film suffered a lot from the coronavirus, from what I saw behind the scenes. It was all filmed in Australia. It was like all insulated, and then we got those infamous photos of Taika Waititi cozying up with his fiancée Rita Ora and the actress that does Valkyrie, them having like a whole orgy fest, kissing each other. And I'm gonna put the connection between orgy and what I'm about to say next. So Jane Foster and Thor reunite, and then we get this cheesy ass montage of why they separated, and it made Thor almost creepy as hell at sometimes. Him obsessing over Stormbreaker, like cheating. I think he had more chemistry with his weapons than Jane Foster. Jane Foster, there wasn't really never that much chemistry, to be honest. Okay. So they go off and they end up finding that the kids are in this like shadow planet, whatever. So Thor and Valkyrie and Jane, they go to the planet of the gods, in which we get introduced to Zeus. Zeus is played by Russell Crowe, and let me tell you, he went from Gladiator, Maximus whatever, to Maximus Gluteus. He ended up looking worse than a cheap Italian guy. We understand that Zeus is like, you know, Greek, that kind of mythology thing, but he sounded more like a cheap knockoff Mario, in which it was just very humiliating acting. But then again, Russell Crowe's Australian, so maybe it must have been convenient, like living in Australia. You know, ask him, can you do this role for, I don't know, 10 grand? And then he said, oh, why not? If I'm here for 5 minutes, even worse, and I don't need to really do anything. So this is a part in the movie where probably you've seen in the trailer that Chris Hemsworth gets, you know, butt naked. And let me say double standards. I like equality on both sides. I'm gonna ponder this question. All these women ogling over Chris Hemsworth. What happens if Lady Valkyrie was naked, you know, like a butt there, butt shot? I don't think everybody will be ogling their eyes. So they're just double standards. And in the trailer, we see Thor having the back tattoo of like the horn. I have to re-see the trailer because there was some bits added there that I didn't see before, now seen in the movie. They had the horn tattoo, and then of course R.I.P. Loki, heart, you know, broken open. And let me tell you, that's the most disingenuous sentiment ever, and as well, kind of like something of a child would do, like an effing doodle. A badass, you know, horn figure kind of symbol with some cheap doodles on the back. And clearly CGI'd on Chris Hemsworth back, obviously, not even this fake tattoo. So the whole thing was disingenuous. The whole feeling of losing family members, fake as hell, and the jokes fell flat. The only thing, the second part, interesting part within this film was all the soundtrack from Guns N' Roses. That made the film, you know, at least different somewhat. And we understand Gorr's concept of killing all the gods, that they didn't really help whatsoever. At some point, I really wanted Gorr to kill Thor. That would have made the whole movie interesting, even more interesting as itself. I would have even taken put Jane Foster as the new Thor, because Chris Hemsworth has got his expiration date as Thor. He's better doing these movies with Netflix than being in the Marvel movies anymore. They reduced his character of a warrior to an imbecile, to like a blonde male bimbo that he has no action or thought within himself. That Thor, we think, kills Zeus, which we find out later on from the fact that Zeus is alive and well, and he ends up taking the thunderbolt that Zeus has. But then again, he didn't manage to raise an army, so they go to the planet, the dark planet world, and they have this epic fight with Gore. And then we tell you, Gore did look terrifying and menacing. And then we find out that Gore's ultimate plan is to use Stormbreaker to speak with this kind of entity called Eternity, in which we don't know. We assume his wish is to kill all the gods, to make everything neutral, I guess. So they managed to escape from the planet with Jane looking seriously ill, and then Jane, before that, Jane reveals to Thor that she's dying of cancer, and they have kind of a meaningful moment, but then again, at the spur of the moment. So they end up escaping the planet while using the Bifrost, but in that time Gore manages to pry off Stormbreaker from Thor, and they end up getting to the hospital. How much this movie has made everything to be a big fat joke. When Thor in the costume and everything is talking to the doctor about Jane's condition, I laughed in the cinema, because it just, how can you take any serious moment serious when 90% of the movie is a joke? Even with my family members, they asked the obvious. Thor being a god, do you think he could have thought in his mind maybe go to some other god of healing or so on? But then again, maybe there'll be plot holes, people saying, well, then why doesn't he cure everybody of cancer? So this movie was full of plot holes. So with Valkyrie and Jane, hospitalized, and Thor basically telling Jane, if you use the hammer one more time, you end up sucking out all of your remaining life. He goes off by himself gallantly to where the kids are. And then he meets the kids, and again, he gives the kids the power of Thor, and even that bit's a big fat joke. And he ends up fighting against Gore. And I was rooting for Gore. I wanted Gore to go and stab Thor. That would have made everything meaningful. But Jane, swoops in, and Gore manages to open the gateway to speak to Eternity. And Thor gives the big axe Stormbreaker to Heimdall's child, in which, the running joke, Heimdall's child likes Guns N' Roses, so he calls himself Axel. Oh my god. And then the kids go up, and then Thor is there, seeing that Jane's lying in her last legs, and then Thor, that's the thing, we never know if Gore's original wish was to kill the gods or to bring back his child. But then again, the inference is that Thor gave the idea to Gore to resurrect his child, in which he does. And then the uneasy ending of the movie is basically that Gore went and gave his child for Thor to look after, because we kind of see that maybe Gore understood Thor on the level of loving somebody that's, dying. And the end of the movie, Thor found his purpose. He became an adopted dad to a powerful child. And Gore dies of natural causes after the necromancer sword dies. So in essence, this is the film in itself. The only meaningful part was Gore's mission, in which there should have been more scenes with Gore, for God's sake, with Christian Bale. They got a caliber of an actor, and they go and cut out scenes and put in the most, god awful jokes that only maybe a 6-year-old could, comprehend. The only thing Marvel has good going at the moment, apart from the Spider-Man movie, is the streaming services. Moon Knight, which, all-time favorite series. Hawkeye was great, it was okay, take it for what it is. But apart from that, how can you take anything seriously after that? Just nah. Anyway, we come to the end of this video. It's me saying my grievances, but you let me know. Comment down below if you like this movie, if it's your type of cup of tea. I can get stuff, but if you need to have a good ratio of people, for keeping the light stuff for the kids and then for the adults. But oh my god. But anyway, As I leave you always, stay safe,